But folks, the stories that we're going to cover today, one of which has been a very hot topic, especially in some of the DMs that I'm in, and that's regarding the Hellblade 2 update. Now, the Hellblade 2 update is going to be adding a 60 FPS mode to Xbox Series X, not Series S. Series S is going to be left at 30. The 60 mode is going to come to the Series X. That is going to be available for Steam, but it's also going to be launching for the PlayStation 5 in August. Both the Pro and the regular PS5 are getting the 60 frames from inception. This is one of those topics that I see having two really good sides to. I don't think anybody's wrong for feeling one way or the other. We'll get into that because me and C Money were talking in the green room, and he had a phenomenal point of view as to why the 30 frames would. Again, I had a conversation again privately with a feuld people in our DMs that I'm in. I'm going to be honest with you. I had no problem with the 30. I thought it was a incredible cinematic experience. Would I have liked maybe 40? A 30, 40, 60 like you had in the Vow? That would have been pretty dope if you would have got like a middle best of both worlds kind of a thing. But I beat Hellblade 2 twice. Played it at 30, and because it's going to 60, I'm probably going to play through it again. It is something that is just an incredible experience. I've already gotten all the achievements, so I'd be playing it simply just to experience the 60 frames, see what that's about. But again, that is an incredible experience, and we'll see how well it's received on PlayStation. Because again, folks, we talked about this many, many times before. There were certain content creators and journalists that admittedly were crying on stream. Now, whether that was for money or an act, I don't know. What? With Hellblade 1, yeah, they were literally crying because of how how the story was told about Senua, like tears, right?
I thought you were saying they were crying about this.
Oh no!
It's like Jesus.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was again some of the same streamers / games media reviewers said that that Hellblade 2 was disappointing and it didn't deliver, and yet it only just did everything that one didn't do. So again, their anger wasn't because the game didn't deliver. Their anger was that they didn't have it on their favorite console of choice, which was the PlayStation 5. And that's ultimately what wound up happening. But that is not the only story we're going to cover. And again, shout out to everybody in the chat. I know somebody here said that they're not a big Call of Duty fan. That's back end. We have, again, 3 topics today. We're going to get into Black Ops 7. It's a topic that I can't wait to get into because I'm a big fan. Obviously, you see that I consistently play the game. I consistently record content of it because it is really good to have, playing in the background. Maybe you're not into Call of Duty. I hear you. But I certainly am, and I'm very excited for 7. I did pull a Games Radar article that breaks down a lot of information that it has not really been, out there in the socials. I want to break down where this falls in the timeline, what to expect, and the middle of the topic is going to be out the Outer Worlds 2, folks, because one of the things, C-Money, that I think is being done at Xbox Game Studios, and it's being done to great degree, is that each team is reaching out to other teams for help. And what we learned, thanks to a story that comes the way of GameSpot.com, and again, I'll read the author's information, of course, because we've got to give credit where credit is due. The Outer Worlds team actually reached out to the Halo Studios for help, and I got some pretty interesting quotes, and it's pretty interesting how some of the things done in Halo, specifically Halo Infinite, are going to find their ways into the Outer Worlds 2. Very cool stuff. But C-Money, let's open up with the Hellblade 2 controversy. Now, this story was pulled by PureXbox.com. It was written by Fraser Gilbert. I've used his work before. I like the way this dude writes. And the lead title of his article says, Hellblade 2 to receive free 60 FPS Xbox upgrade alongside the PlayStation 5 release this August. Now, he does have an update here where I did already confirm that the 60 FPS mode is exclusive to the Xbox Series X consoles. On Xbox, it is not coming to the Series S, unfortunately. But look, let me just, again, read some of the story from Gilbert's, Fraser's, written article. And it goes on to say that we found original story. We found out a month ago that Senua Saga Hellblade 2 would be getting an enhanced edition on Xbox at the same time as for the PlayStation 5 launch of the game, and we know that the release date is August 12th of 2025. The feature list for the Hellblade 2 Upped Enhanced Edition also has been confirmed, which includes a 60 FPS performance mode, presumably on the Xbox Series X, a very high graphical preset on PC, an optional new game mode focused around the dark rot, and an enhanced photo mode and developer commentary. So again, folks, if you never played this game, well, August 12th, you're getting the free upgrade if you already own it on Series X. It's called the Senua Saga's Hellblade 2 Enhanced Edition. Any of our PlayStation friends in the chat, if you've never played this game, if you've been waiting for this to come to PlayStation, August 12th is going to be your day to pick this up. It is, I would say, 100 times better than the original in every way. The combat has been improved. The graphics are probably still some of the best in the business. It just is insane how amazing this game looks. And of course, we're talking about the 30 frames mode way back in the days when it launched. It still looked incredible. I would imagine that the graphical enhanced mode that they're talking about for PC is going to be off the charts, especially if you're running like a 4060 through a 4090. It's going to melt your eyeballs. But, you know, C-Money, the conversation among Xbox players, and again, no specific people because we don't do the names thing. A lot of the conversations I had were with other gamers, other podcasters, and one of the biggest complaints, see, is the fact that the 60 FPS mode comes alongside the launch of the PS5. Now, a lot of people feel slighted by this. A lot of people said, well, I've already played it. I'm not going back. You have a really interesting thought and theory in regards to why the 30 frames mode was okay. And again, I said it, folks. Maybe I'm going to get the virtual tomatoes here. 30 frames has never been a problem with me. Now, is that because I'm not a PC guy? Maybe, but I've always been okay with 30, especially when it comes to single player. Do I prefer 60? Sometimes, but I'm a bit of a graphical whore. So I would much rather have graphical fidelity, than a 60 frames mode. But I will say what's converted me a bit is what Obsidian did with Avowed. Avowed gave you a 30, a 40, and a 60. I played the game through 40 and loved every second of it. But let's get into your personal thoughts about the reasoning behind 30 frames and why it's actually okay.
I mean, listen, obviously this is not new, right? Like Starfield did the same thing, right? And I think for me, I get a little frustrated with this idea that people are pissed about it. Like Tom, our boy Todd, when he was talking about Starfield, he said he likes the game at 30 FPS. They build the game out focusing on 30 FPS so that it's a fantastic experience. And I played and beat that game between my Xbox and my PC, jumping between 60 or whatever on the PC and 30 on the Xbox, and then some streaming. The point is that between the mix of them, it really didn't matter. The experience was always great, right? The experience was always really good. Are we obviously always going to prefer the most frames per second as possible, 60 FPS all the time? Sure, that would be great, right? That would be great. But what we learned with Starfield was that a year later, they updated it without it going to PlayStation 5. Starfield is still not on PlayStation 5. And they updated that game to run at 60, right? So these games are designed to work the way they're going to work. And then they were allotted the time afterwards to go ahead and fix it up and finagle the way they had to do it to make it work at 60. And now it does, right? On Starfield. Enter Hellblade. Hellblade, made by Ninja Theory, small team, right? Focused on making a high quality game, a AAA quadruple A experience as far as what they did graphically, right? Still the best looking game that's out there. Just is what it is. Definitely still the best game that's out there. And when you go ahead and you look at what they accomplished, it's phenomenal, right? It was an amazing story, amazing experience. The audio was crazy, visual crazy, right? They nailed that shit. And now a year later, they did exactly what Starfield did and went ahead and worked on it so that they can go ahead and get a 60 FPS mode going. How are we going to sit here and cry? How? You already experienced the game. The game was phenomenal. 60 FPS wasn't going to make that game a better game. It's not a Twitch shooter. Nothing was crazy happening. I played it on 60 on the PC. I played it streaming on GeForce Now at 60. I played it 30 FPS on the console. Love my experience. Either way, it was not something that went ahead and became an issue, right? It wasn't a problem at all. So the fact that now we always go down this same road, and then we always have the people who just want to do it. Like, listen, I'm never going to be, this is some loser mentality, and that's just what it is, and that's the only way I could phrase it, right? I don't live my life that way, right? You don't go ahead and tear down something after you had an amazing experience with it. If that game never went 60 FPS, nobody would have batted an eye because it was an amazing experience. You ask all these people who were into Hellblade. Now, obviously, there's people who don't like those types of games. That's fine. But if you get rid of those people and you just focus on the people who do love playing that game, you go ahead and people were loving that shit. And now it's a problem? Nah, man, that's crazy. And I can tell you right now, I much rather get in, and this is obviously my opinion, but that's other people can feel what they want to feel, but we don't have time. We have too many games coming out.
We really do, bro.
So
Honestly,
we have too many games coming out. If Starfield needed to come out at 30 on console because that was the way that they could optimize it to get it out as quick as possible, but they optimize it in a way where when you pull that trigger and you're shooting the guns, you don't sit there and say, "Oh my god, this is 30 FPS. This feels like crap." You know that wasn't the experience.
right?
You know, on Xbox Series X at 30 FPS, I was loving that. I was loving it. So the idea that 30 FPS somehow was an issue is full of it. Okay. If they designed the game that way, then it works great. Look at Forza. Forza Horizon was always a 30 FPS experience first. And then now with the power, they have the 60. But they had the 30 FPS experience and it was always smooth because why? They designed the game around the idea. It wasn't a limit, it was the choice they made, right? They were going to do that because they wanted to push everything around it, right? The graphics. When we saw the Mexico situation and they drove by, that looked so good, right? They're always going to push this stuff. And it's all choices of developers, man. I'm not going to sit here and cry, which I know some of these people, that's what they want. And they're going to say that I'm glazing. No, I'm not glazing shit. I played the game and I had a great time. You are the one who want to run around and just create this narrative of disappointment and problems because, oh no, now the Xbox is releasing the game on PlayStation. They're putting a 60 FPS mode. Oh, but they're also putting it on Xbox. Who cares? Who cares? They're doing it. If you cared enough, if you were going to go back and play that now, right? It's not for you, bro. It's not for you. It's for the new people. Don't say, I already played it. Now I'm mad. What? You loved that game. You loved it. Now you're mad? You rather have waited another year to play the game? Come on, man. Come on.
Well, you know what? Let me bring in some
That's some
context
baby
because the
bullshit.
reason why I bring this topic up is because last night, Sin in the chat, who's a good friend of the channel, actually made mention of it. He actually has a quote here. He says, Boom and C, look up the article where NT is quoted, and of course, he's talking about Ninja Theory, is quoted about Hellblade 2 possibly being ruined by adding the 60 FPS mode. Folks just want them to be straight up about things. And Will the Broke Boy Lewis in the chat, or do UK Now, the Broke Boy Insider, says the issue that Hellblade 2 is that the devs said that they didn't want to do a 60 FPS mode for the game because they wanted the quote unquote cinematic experience. And now that it comes to PlayStation 5, it gets a 60 FPS mode. And I think
You know what?
ultimately
You're right.
that
You're right. You know what? Decisions can never change, right? You're right. Opinions, thoughts, they should never change. If you quote me 5 years ago, that's the way I must believe today. You are so full of it, guys. And not in particular you, the people who are sitting there trying to make this a thing, bro.
well, it's
They
again, it's
wanted
not
a
yes.
cinematic experience. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means that on the console right now, as they were developing the game, they're doing exactly what I just said they were doing. They were pushing 30 because they were focusing on the cinematic experience around it. They wanted to push graphics as much as possible and wanted to not sit there and spend development time struggling to figure out how to do 60 FPS at the same time as them pushing the world around the 30 FPS framework that they had. Again, if the game came out and we were all saying, man, this feels really crappy. Like, wow, I can't even. This is crazy. This doesn't even feel right. It doesn't work. Nobody was saying that, man. Come on. Nobody was saying that. You guys are going back and crying about stuff that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. On it's going on the Xbox at 60 FPS as well. And obviously, PC is already going to do that no matter what.
Yeah, Black
Right? They don't
Sausage
have
in
to
the
sit there
chat
and
literally
do
said
anything.
that it was 60 frames at launch on PC.
Oh yeah, but that's not they didn't do shit for that. What do you
Right.
think? They coded it to go at 60 FPS for PC?
No, if you have the
No, the PC
hardware,
is
it's
based
just
off the
gonna
power, bro.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
don't be you know what I'm saying? Like balance it out. All right. Unless you don't understand PC, which is fine, right? PC is PC. You don't sit there and be like, well, I'm gonna make it work at this. But no, they just have to make sure the game's not gonna break if it goes faster. But the power is what it's about, right?
Yeah.
If there's power, then they could do it. Of course, they could have sat there and just been like 60 FPS right off the rip. Sure, no problem. If that was the way they designed the game. But obviously, in the beginning, coming out as a new studio, as a smaller studio, trying to push this, the limits of what you can see on screen, which they have accomplished. Like we haven't seen that shit at 60 on a console. We don't know what trade-offs there are to get to 60 on the console. And just like Todd Howard before that, they wanted an experience that every time somebody took a screenshot, and I feel like this might have been a conversation when this launched too, in the beginning when it was announced that it was going to be 30 versus 60. And I'm pretty sure it's like jogging in my memory now. I'm pretty sure we talked about the idea that if it was 60 at the time, the trade-offs that they would have made would have been the place where everybody was going to take screenshots and they would have been like, oh, look at this, how it doesn't look as good, right? They don't want that, right? They didn't want that. They want to focus on making it the best experience possible. 30 FPS gave us that experience. There was no bullshit. The shit looked amazing. Like anything else is just people wanting to have an issue with something. And honestly, like, come on, man. Come on. You're getting it as well, right? You're getting it as well. The only alternative to this scenario was that we didn't get Hellblade last year. We got it this year. Is that the way you would have wanted it?
No,
You
I
wanted to
mean,
wait a
but
year and get it at
again,
the same time as PlayStation?
for me personally, again, when it's just a console war conversation, then it's not worth having. I think the folks in the chat that are complaining or have an issue with this, I think it's the transparency. Because again, Ninja Theory, a great developer, folks. And you got to remember, this game. Remember when this game came out? It's still one of the best looking games on Xbox. It's probably one of the best looking games this generation. Now there are others, sure, but this is a team of 40 people. I think 41 or 42 people made this game, as opposed to 18 or 20 that made the original. I really think that the issue with a lot of people, especially some of the biggest Xbox supporters, is being told that, okay, we can only do 30 because this is our vision. This is our,
Yep.
this is our artwork. This is how we want it. And then when it releases on PlayStation, they make it 60. Now, I don't know if that's because of the PlayStation. I don't think it's because of the
That
PlayStation.
makes the
I
PlayStation couldn't affect what they did on Xbox
I
that way,
just think that
right?
I think really what the people are asking for are a little bit more transparency with Xbox Game Studios, and that I absolutely agree. And what I will say, for this, and again, we're going to move on, folks. It's not a biggest topic of the show. We do have two other monster sized ones, but because Sin actually wanted to talk about it, I thought it was worthy because there is conversation happening in the community, and and like I said, for me personally, even some private DMs, and the running narrative isn't that they couldn't do 60. It's they said that they didn't want to do 60 because they wanted it to have a cinematic feel. And now that it's coming out on PlayStation, it's to me, it's just a bad look because you said that you wanted 30 and now it's coming out at 60. And a
I
lot of
think I
people,
think you're if you're
yeah,
somebody who has gotten, if on Twitter somebody took a post you made a year ago and you thought one way, right? Like with the games going on PlayStation Boom, right? You have now since accepted that that's the way it is. You don't like it, but you accepted the way it is, right? But if all your DMs were about or tweets were about people telling you that, well, you didn't like it and you don't want it and you can accept it now. That's one thing. This is not some weird shit. If you listen to the language that is spoken, there is no problem with what they said. At the time they were making the game, they were focusing on making it in a cinematic experience, and they were focusing on 30 FPS. After the game release, they went ahead and they spent time and worked on the coding or whatever it was, the infrastructure to get them to the place where they could do 60. As you all already acknowledged, the game was never capped on 30 on PC. The game was always able to go at whatever your hardware was capable of it going to. So the idea that when they said that 30 FPS is where they wanted for that cinematic experience, as if that was open and shut case done, versus having a few like cells in the brain where you could put together the fact that the game released on PC at the same time where you could do 60, 120, whatever your heart desire, right? Unless there was a cap, right? Then you would know that that idea doesn't hold water. The fact of the matter is that at the time of developing the game, just like Todd Howard said the same thing. He said he preferred 30 FPS because he wanted to make it as beautiful as he could. That's what he said in the interview before the game dropped. Ninja Theory didn't say anything wrong or deceiving when they said at the time that they were making the game that they were focusing on making it the most cinematic experience that they could, and they did that at 30 FPS. Afterwards, just like Starfield, afterwards they went ahead and were able to get it to a point where it's 60 FPS. After. So during the time of development, there is no change in what they said. That is exactly what they delivered. They delivered the most cinematic experience that you have ever experienced in a game. Don't play yourself. You know that that's the case. They did exactly what they said. A year later, this is new scenario that exists. And again, you can try to put on your console war hat and say that, oh, it's because of PlayStation 5. Then explain to me, fam. And I just need to know because maybe I'm maybe I'm not as up on it as you. Um, why did Starfield have a 60 FPS patch a year later? Did that come to PlayStation 5 as well?
not yet. That's I would
Oh,
imagine
not
it's
yet,
going to be announced soon,
but it didn't, right?
right.
And it would be 2 years if it came out this year, 3 years if it came out next year. But in 1 year, they gave us the 60 FPS patch, right? So, what was the motivation then? After the game released, they worked on it more. That is the answer. They did the same exact thing with this. They worked on it more. They got it to where it could be. Guess what? 30 FPS is still on S Series S. In that
Yes.
year, they could not get it to run at a way that they wanted to. Now, Starfield, that runs at 60 FPS on the Series S. They were able to do it. So what is your explanation on why it's still 30 FPS on Series S?
Well, I mean, it could be that I mean, obviously, it's just the hardware, or they didn't have enough
It's just the
time to finish it.
hardware. So now there's no deceptive nature there. There's no problem there because the hardware can't hold the quality that they want at 60 FPS, right? That's where the issue comes in. It's the narrative that they want to chase, and there's this world where they think that the fun thing is to give smoke where it's due, and it's like, fam, there's no smoke. This is props. Good job, Ninja Theory, for getting it at 60 FPS. So anybody playing the game for the first time going forward will have a new experience. When they were making the game, they were focusing on making it the most cinematic experience they could right off the rip. That's what happened. That's what they delivered. Now, did they come out and say that? No. Now they're saying, okay, we're doing an enhanced version, enhanced based off the original. We spent time boosting it up. Should the PC players be so upset that there's now a new level above where it was when it launched?
I think that what you saw with Hellblade is a far gone conclusion. I don't think games are coming out at 30 frames anymore. I think that they are going to, because they have so many studios and they have so many games in development, and there's actually no rush to fill a cadence because of the amount of games coming out. There is no, okay, we were working on this and we have this deadline. We have to have it. Because if you remember, folks, we did hear before she left the studio for Obsidian that that Avowed was only going to release at 30 frames. It
Yeah,
got
I remember
delayed,
that.
and then what wound up happening? You got a 30, a 40, and a 60. And I know a lot of people played at 60. Some people probably played even more than that, especially if you had a comparable PC. You were probably playing it even maybe 90 frames, maybe 100 frames. I played it at 40 and I loved it. I thought the 40 was absolutely perfect. But again, this is one of those situations where it's not the big topic of the show. I love this community. I appreciate that, and of course, Sin has been a big fan of the show for a long time. You guys and gals wanted us to talk about it. Well, here we are. We're talking about it. And again, if you have in the future, if you have any requests for specific topics that maybe I didn't see or didn't come across, and you'd like it covered, just DM me or drop a message in the chat. Again, we try to include everybody here. There are really no right or wrong answers here. It is getting a 60 frames mode on the Series X. It's getting a 60 frames mode for PC. It's getting an enhanced mode, same mode for PS5, PS5 Pro. I don't necessarily personally think that it was held back for the PS5. To be honest with you, I think 30 is what they wanted to do. If there was going to be an eventual 60 mode, I see where the criticism comes in, where they said they could have easily said, hey, listen, folks, we are releasing this game at 30. We are investigating or currently developing a 60 frames mode we don't have a time frame for it. This is how we wanted to sell the game. It's a cinematic experience. It's a single player game. It's not a Twitch shooter. 30 frames is going to work. If you want to play it on PC, you can add additional frames based on your hardware, but we are looking into, and I think that's really what it comes down to. If they would have said, hey, folks, it's 30 frames, but we are currently looking into potentially adding a 60 frames mode. We don't know if we can get there, but we're going to try. Right? Like, I don't know if that's something they want to, if a developer would want to put out there, because obviously,
I feel like that's so much, bro. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is about gaming, bro. Like, why are we sitting here acting like these people are supposed to be telling us everything in possibility in the future? What if they couldn't come up with 60 FPS and they announced that they were trying to make it happen and people didn't buy the game because
then that people would be complaining about that probably.
yeah, it's like, what do
Yeah.
you mean? The game is out. You either play it at 30 or go buy a PC right now if that's the only way you're going to experience it.